Hello, my name is Dr. Jason Vassar Elong, and my colleague, Dr. Dania Fairweather, and I are here to present our global and digital prototype, Cultural Border Crossing, or CBC, a sustainable educational curriculum for the African diaspora.
We want all learners to not only have access to this content, but to also connect with each other in an epistemological way.
We also want to ensure that members of the African diaspora have access to this curriculum, which includes translation into indigenous African languages of all the curriculum components. We intend to consult with our networks for those translations.
Thanks, Jason. And for this presentation, we would like to outline the elements of our CBC curriculum to you. We will begin by sharing the rationale and background information of our model. Next, we will describe the theoretical framework used to build CBC and the teaching method that will be used to reach the CBC objectives. The cultural implications of CBC will be explored, and we will end with a call to action to get you, our viewers, involved.
Thank you, Dania. So, as educational anthropologists, we understand culture to be the ways in which people live and interpret the world around them. In our approach, we offer nuance of the lived experiences of members of the African diaspora to promote mutual respect and understanding, and to address anti-Blackness where applicable. Cultural border crossing, as a practice in learning how to participate in different cultures, helps us to accomplish this task. Our framework was developed by Akinhead and Jajebe in 1999 and affirms that cultural border crossing aims to, quote, develop culturally sensitive curricula and teaching methods that reduce the foreignness felt by students, end quote. In our case, members of the African diaspora. So, to provide a little bit of context, in 1924, Western society maintained its stereotype that Africans, now the term in this era was Negro, but moreover, they postured that we were illiterate, incapable, and inferior. Scholars of the Pan-African movement, however, argued for the unification of Black people worldwide to overcome these naturalizing discourses and to cultivate a system of Black pride and prosperity.
And to add on to what Jason mentioned, concerned with the displacement of Africans, Pan-African scholars like W.E.B. Du Bois and Marcus Garvey postured an opposing view. While Garvey supported the notion that Black people should create their own separate nation devoid of white supremacy, Du Bois argued that Black people should fully integrate into the system. To that end, cultural border crossing curriculum intends to use these ideas as a foundation to dismantle those naturalizing discourses that have been systematically used to weaken the self-efficacy of members of the African diaspora.
Thank you, Dania. So, our hypothesis and assumptions, even though we have demonstrated our intellectual abilities, contributed to society in a myriad of ways. For example, we become inventors, we give service to the military, etc. We are still prone to violence by virtue of our being African people. Therefore, the assumption behind CBC is that members of the African diaspora are not educated about the social cultural histories and experiences of fellow members of that diaspora. And as a result, it creates cultural dissonance, the separation of culture and practice, and alienation among us. For example, musical artist Akon from Senegal said that Black people in the United States don't have a culture, not acknowledging the musical genius that has manifested among members of the African diaspora in the Americas since their arrival.
CBC also assumes that by virtue of the transatlantic slave trade and colonization, Black people in the Americas have become removed from the cultural practices of our ancestral homeland. Herein, our curriculum will provide opportunities for communal sharing as we recover those practices. We ask, how do we relearn these things like language that have been taken from us? For example, this curriculum is written and presented in English. Dr. Elong's heritage traces to the Bamileke in Cameroon, and there, the national languages are English and French. That he and his relatives in Cameroon can communicate in English is a direct reflection of his family's history surrounding chattel slavery in the Americas and colonization in Cameroon.
Thank you for mentioning that, Dania. And lastly, CBC also assumes that Afro-intellectualism has not protected members of the African diaspora from racism and inequality, even among members within the community. For instance, in some cases, there are Black American biases against Africans and Afro-Caribbeans. CBC questions if this is by design and if these things are just part of our reality. Furthermore, these biases create division among us. Note that we are not saying all, we are saying some, but even the few that hold true to these beliefs, it causes division.
And so this brings us to our theoretical framework. Because this problem is multidimensional, our theoretical framework also has to be multidimensional. In the first place, CBC utilizes Pierre Bourdieu's capital theory, which emphasizes three forms of capital: economic, social, and cultural, all of which influences an individual's position and disposition in social reality throughout their lifetime.
Thank you, Dania. So while speaking about cultural border crossing and assimilated performance, we understand that race is a social construct, and within it are ideals that place Eurocentrism, or whiteness, at the pinnacle, and Afrocentrism, or Blackness, at the bottom. Furthermore, one's proximity to whiteness, i.e. linguistics, cultural practices, etc., equates to social capital. Within the African diaspora, there have been long-held beliefs that one's proximity to whiteness equates to success, and our aim is to help members of the African diaspora understand how this cultural phenomenon affects the global community.
So to bring this all together and to connect the academy to the community, CBC also prioritizes practice theory, which emphasizes an individual's actions and behaviors and how social reality is created through repetitive acts. It is within this framework we can see how theory turns into practice.
Thank you, Dania. So here we have our research questions. So these research questions will be used to expand our curriculum into a model that educators can use in their classrooms. We have a survey course that will be used to collect data about the lived experiences of those within the African diaspora. And while collecting those data, we will expand upon our research to reflect those experiences to create companion courses. Currently, we envision a set of 5 courses that address different aspects of the aforementioned lived experiences. But as our research continues, we will adjust accordingly. Our research questions will be used to guide conversations among members of the African diaspora. And as we have discourse around our histories and lived experiences as they pertain to chattel slavery in the Americas and colonization on the continent of Africa. Our research questions will endeavor to challenge institutions of higher learning to include curricula like ours that provide nuance for students.
And this approach for the curriculum centers on an anthropological traditional approach for understanding the human condition. Now, these elements include evolutionary, holistic, comparative, and field-based. So how will this look? First, in the first place, we will have ongoing panel discussion focus groups and open educational forums that will be organized and facilitated to uncover truths and realities about their professional and social experiences as members of the African diaspora. This data will be analyzed, synthesized, and compared to gain nuanced insights into the Afro experience. These activities will be documented and used to develop holistic learning outcomes, and activities will be used in the curriculum.
Thank you, Dania. So here we look at our pedagogical approach, our methodology. This section focuses on what we currently do in our survey course. We are engaging in case study learning so students gain a foundational understanding of Afro-intellectualism and begin to see themselves as active participants in the research process. Through art and problem-based learning, the learner will be able to elevate their digital competencies while expressing their ideas and research to the global African community. Examples from lessons used in the classroom as case studies will provide hard examples in our theoretical framework in practice.
And this directly links to our theoretical part of our theoretical framework of practice theory. I would like to focus here on the application section of CBC. We intend to use a service learning model, where we are encouraging student learners to participate in community service and reflect on this experience as part of coursework, while developing a vital and critical consciousness of the communities served. And all of this will be prioritized. In this model, service learning will help the learner realize the reality as they collaborate with organizations and businesses in their local communities. Knowledge will be gained by applying theories learned in the academy to some of the most pressing local community issues. The modality that will be used, as mentioned before, as Jason mentioned, it will be arts-based learning, while at the same time improving digital competencies.
Thank you, Dania. And so here we have our course description. This CBC survey course offers an overview of issues as they relate to members of the African diaspora. The first in a series of 5, this course will provide a lens by which members of the African diaspora may begin to understand and respect lived experiences.
And for the CBC course as well, we will articulate how cultural and historical dissonance manifest in the learner's social reality. So we will design and conduct digital research projects that address community-based issues. We will collaborate effectively to develop research projects that promote cultural sustainability. And finally, we will apply theoretical frameworks in professional and social situations.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, we provide this data and this curriculum for institutions, and so you're absolutely right, Dania.
Yeah.
To keep with the theme of cultural border crossing, we envision educators as conductors that help students grapple with nuance. History is lost to those without proper context, and providing that context will enable students to learn via holistic perspectives.
And thinking about history from a nuanced perspective allows for true learning to take place. So take, for example, the history of the 13 colonies in the United States and colonial Belize, and how indentured servitude was used to build these colonies. We can also examine the history of chattel slavery in the Americas and how this became the law of the land that was taken from the indigenous. We can analyze the ways in which both change and continuity have affected the human experience.
Thank you, Dania. So the cultural impact of CBC will be important as students develop skills that help them identify relationships among ideas from cultural and historical perspectives in real-world context. We believe that students are stakeholders whose education is predicated on an abolitionist approach to teaching, whereby we do not penalize them for what they do not know, but rather encourage students ample opportunities to strengthen their knowledge base. Our curriculum positions students to build on what they already know as they learn more about their ever-changing world.
And right, Jason, and it is in this context that CBC intends to frame a comparative context to critically assess the ideas, forces, and values that have created the modern and united African diasporic community.
And so here we have our call to action. To that end, we are recruiting people to participate in our focus groups. More specifically, we are seeking members of the African diaspora that are willing to share their lived experiences.
If you are interested in participating in CBC focus groups, please scan the QR code or register in advance by emailing us, and we will send you the direct registration link. This link is also located on the slide.
Thank you, Dania. So we'd like to take a moment and just thank our ancestors for being who they are. Additionally, we would like to thank the Heritage Education Network Belize, the Association of Black Anthropologists, our respective universities, Galen University and the University of Missouri St. Louis, and finally, each other for our tireless commitment to our community and our partnership as colleagues and as friends. Feel free to contact us accordingly.
And thank you again for listening to our presentation.